also includes data and digital rights. Incidentally, we launched a report on data and digital rights a couple of days ago. And I think someone was on PIN, rather initiative was there. And we do some bit of litigation from time to time. Yes, I think we have about 37 lawsuits against different tiers and arms of government, and all in the public interest, I must note. They are not suits, as it were, that you consider frivolous. They go to the heart of the matter. For instance, the ban of Twitter. We're going to court to challenge what we saw, and clearly the Constitution supports this as an unlawful infringement on the part of government, including the various directives of the NBC, for instance, against the TV and radio and media houses. And also the ban, the blocking of SIMs is something we are going to court recently about. So that goes to the heart of what we're discussing here today. And all this is in the public interest to make sure that we can enjoy our rights to the fullest. So I'm very happy to be here and to be on this panel. Thank you very much.
If you want to clap, let's clap very well. All right, thank you. Miss, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. My name is Osai Ojigo. I'm the country director of Amnesty International Nigeria. We're based in Abuja. It's really a great honor to be here to participate in DRIF 22. In terms of what Amnesty International stands for, we're a human rights organization. We campaign and advocate for a world where everybody's human rights is respected. As an organization that is over 60 years old, we were established in 1961. We have several Amnesty International entities in over 162 countries in Africa, Europe, and of course, basically everywhere that you can think of. And as much as people think that we're over interested in the Nigerian government, Amnesty has released several reports on the activities of the US government that infringes on human rights, the United Kingdom, in Germany, in Australia, particularly more recently, the impact of the restrictive policies on refugees and migrants, which has led to long years of enforced imprisonment for many people, running away from periods of unrest and climate issues that have led them to flee their home countries to seek safety. With regards to digital rights as well, Amnesty International has been one of the forefront of human rights organizations working to ensure that human rights is in all aspects, whether it's in creation, the use of technology, the development, how the algorithm has been used to actually incite rather than to enhance and help human rights. A couple of years ago, we also established the Amnesty Tech program and opened our first office in Silicon Valley, which is working with the technology community to ensure that human rights is not violated in the quest to use technology to make our life easier. We've also been involved with issues around privacy, surveillance, targeting human rights defenders, and how technology can be used to enhance protection rather than expose vulnerabilities for human rights defenders and activists working on the ground. We've done quite a number of research, looking also at how robotics is being used in war as a means to identify and take off targets, but also the discriminatory practices, which means that certain communities and people could be targeted as a result of the way it's being used. Overall, the work that we do is to ensure that no one loses their life as a result of doing the work they do. Freedom of expression is entrenched as a critical aspect and foundation for all other rights to be enjoyed. Bringing it back home to the African continent, we've done a lot of work on pushing for freedom of the media and of the press, and freedom of expression broadly in terms of the way NGOs and activists carry out their work. Our entry into more of the strategic litigation in this area was spawned on by the fact that African governments tend to limit the press and by extension now, online spaces ahead of elections. So our colleagues in Amnesty Togo did bring a suit a couple of years ago challenging the suspension of the internet ahead of the elections. We've also documented the use of the blackouts in Cameroon and more recently in Nigeria, the Twitter ban, and how these are ways through which government continues to limit freedom of expression, but also dissemination of information in the name of security or fighting terrorism. Amnesty Nigeria, together with other partners, were very critical in intervening in the Twitter case ban brought by SERAP. We submitted an amicus in that suit. And of course, we're waiting for the judgment before government decided to lift Twitter, and then brought an argument saying that Twitter, that since it's already been lifted, there's no need for us to continue. However, we are waiting 10th of May for when the ECOWAS court has since now decided that they will be releasing their decision on that particular case. Broadly, we've also brought out a lot of research on freedom of expression, looking at how the Cybercrime Act, Terrorism Act, and other practices and abuses by security agents with the approval or tacit knowledge of their enablers have led to a shrinking of civic space in Nigeria, but also endangering voices such as yourselves, who use the online media, social media as means of communication, dissemination, but also for economic activities. I think I'll stop here. Thank you.
All right. And that's a lot. It's very important, and I'm happy that I heard that you did it, because there are things we talked about that I never imagined that Amnesty International were involved in. And one that struck me particularly is the work around robotics, the use of robotics in war and how it can affect targeted set of people. That's really very interesting and about her. And I'm sure Khadija too is, because I can see she was nodding her head. Yeah, that's something I know she finds very interesting too. So Khadija, I'll come to you now. I wasn't sure if I, wanted you to talk about paradigm initiative, because I imagine that many people must have talked about paradigm initiative between yesterday and today, but I think it's an opportunity for us to for you to tell us about the area of work that you particularly lead at paradigm initiative in terms of intervention in Nigeria, and some of the things that you have led.
Is this working? Yeah. Okay. So you said I shouldn't talk about paradigm initiative. I was ready to go on the whole social enterprise. But truly, we've all heard about that. We know the paradigm initiative is a social enterprise that concentrates its work on digital rights, digital inclusion, technology policy. But this panel is about freedom of expression. So I would limit myself to the work that we have done around freedom of expression. And like Osai said, freedom of expression is the mother of all rights. It's the rights that all our rights come from. It is from your ability to express yourself that the rights to freedom of the press comes, the right to freedom of association, the right to freedom of assembly. So it is necessary for us to protect the right to freedom of expression. And because of where the world has gone to digitally, the right to freedom of expression online, which is where we have placed a lot of our focus, has become very important. So in the pursuit of this, we have taken on, basically, I would break it down into 3 advocacy initiatives when it comes to freedom of expression. So the first one would be IETA. So IETA is we developed a digital rights toolkit to protect digital rights defenders, journalists, all around Africa, especially. So we find that, or we found that freedom of expression is steadily being clamped down by state actors in the world over these days. And I'm sure that this panel is going to talk a lot about that, the way the government has chased down journalists, bloggers, arrested them, all of that. So that toolkit is our attempt at helping to protect all of those digital rights defenders that are online. So you would find different digital security initiatives on there. I think before the IETA toolkit, to be honest, I didn't know VPN existed. So that was a fun learn, two-factor authentication, things like that. So that is something that you would find there, what to do in terms of an internet shutdown. God forbid that happens in Nigeria, but who knows? It's happened in about, I think, am I overshooting by saying 34 African countries at this time? But it keeps happening. So it's not impossible. So it's something that we need to prepare ourselves for. The second thing that we've come up with in terms of protecting freedom of expression is Reporti. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about it in this room. So Reporti is a digital rights violation reporting platform. So we try to use it to, one, track data. So we don't know how many digital rights violations keep happening around Africa. So it's great to get those numbers so that when you start the advocacy initiative, you know what it is exactly to say. I think it's more powerful to say there were 1,000 digital rights violations in Abuja that happened today, as opposed to saying digital rights violations keep happening. So first is to track data, then second is to provide support to those who need it once their digital rights have been violated. So we do this in partnership with a bunch of other organizations around Africa. You report a digital rights violation, which of course includes a violation of your rights, freedom of expression. And then, which takes me into our third initiative, which is strategic litigation. So although one of the violations that could happen could be data security breaches, things like that, which we would hand over to our IT experts. But in terms of something like freedom of expression, one of the best ways to get you redress with those types of rights would be litigation. So we've taken on a lot of litigation initiatives, one of which, of course, is the Twitter ban. I think Serap went to court before us, and I think our case is waiting for hearing, and the lawyer keeps threatening us with, "You've not seen what the court did to Serap." So we're waiting to see how that happens. It's not a duplication of efforts. A lot of things have happened in that case. And even though the court says, you know, that it was the same thing we heard, that but Twitter has been unbanned, so why are you still in court? So it's the principle of it that matters. It is that this case needs to go on for a judgment to be heard, so we don't eventually see WhatsApp shut down, Instagram shut down, Facebook shut down. There needs to be some sort of pronouncement from the court that says this type of thing is illegal. So, you know, I mean, like I said, it's one of those initiatives to protect freedom of expression. We've also taken on, I know I said 3 things, this is the 4th thing, and I'll stop here. So the final thing that is important that we've taken on is training of the stakeholders that are in these spaces. Because one paradigm initiative cannot do it alone, but also this information needs to be out there. So we've taken on one, training of civil society organizations and lawyers specifically to take on these litigation efforts. We have also in the past year done something new, which was training judges and law enforcement agents to ensure that when they see these things come up, they would know how to address it. We definitely saw in our training efforts some gaps. A lot of them found these things new, you know, these rights that people should have. We had police officers wondering why you would want to report certain cases. So yeah, before I get into the PIN experience, that I would say is what we have done in terms of freedom of expression.
Thank you very much, Khadija. I know that if I leave you, you have so much to say, but there'll be more opportunity for intervention as we go through the session. I just want us to quickly, I want to read out the objective question before we continue, so that we know why we are having the conversation, exactly that we do. So 3 objectives were listed for this session. The first objective is to highlight efforts that have been made and pinpoint where increased effort is needed and advancing freedom of expression online. So, and that's why it was important for that first, introductory remarks. Then second is to encourage society actors to work collaboratively on these issues. And third is to spotlight further platforms such as IETA and Report TV that help fight for freedom of expression online. Khadija, already made reference to those platforms, but we'll ask further questions relating to them, especially in terms of how others use it, how can we collaborate with others, in using those platforms. So I will come back to now caller, right? Yeah, so Serap is known. In fact, if you don't know Serap, you must have heard that they are in court with somebody, and you've kind of distinguished yourself in that regard, because whenever there is an issue that what people are in their head that shouldn't somebody challenge it, next thing you see, breaking, the Serap has gone to court, which is very great. So the question I want to ask you is, why do you do? I want people to understand, and I'm going to give you an example. There was a particular issue you took to court. I can't remember specifically. And when you tweeted it, I saw a comment under your tweet saying it's not like the court will do anything about it, or that even if court gives a judgment, the government will obey the judgment and all of that. So the question is, can you help us to understand why Serap does? Even when you sometimes don't get encouragement, why do you keep doing this?
Thank you very much. I would have given you the short answer. Of course, we like looking for trouble. But no, that's a joke. And I was wondering what you said Ping was doing. The way Khadija said it, is that Ayeta, the Yoruba for bulletproof. But the way you said it, it made it look less fetish. It almost looked inviting. All right. For what? Why do we do this? Really, I can only call it public interest. And because Serap is basically a legal advocacy organization, it means there must be a legal angle to everything we see, and law being a tool of social engineering should be able to chart a course for society. And so when we see these issues come up that we know will affect us in the short term, when the long term, we put it before the courts, not only to form a precedent by way of jurisprudence, but to also create laws, because judges do make laws. So when it's the law, then the previous subsequent conduct is more or less covered. And I'll give you a very good, there are a lot of examples. The Twitter ban is a good case in point. Now, there are people who may not be so much active in the digital space, possibly those in the grassroots, and they may think that the Twitter ban does not affect them, but it does. So the way the newspaper is to possibly people in their 70s is the way Twitter is to someone in his early teens. And you could understand that news, engagement, the freedoms, rights you can think of is exercised in that digital space. So you can imagine those who were 70 who felt banning Twitter was not a problem if they take away the right to listen to radio, to watch TV, and to take newspapers from them. And that doesn't only hurt the citizens, it also hurts the government, because democracy is all about civic engagement and participation. How do they want to know what the people think? Which is why when you see people engage on those breakfast shows, you get feedback from Nigerians. Some of them are positive, some of them are negative, but they all form part of that critical discourse that government should know how the people feel. And that doesn't only influence policy, but even legislature, the laws that they should pass and the laws they shouldn't pass. And another example is related to the SIM block I mentioned earlier. The telecommunications shut down in some areas of the Northeast. You may be in the Southwest and think that it does not, but it does when you look at the human rights implications of that. In those communities that telecommunication was shut down, that was last year, you can imagine how, if there are women who wanted to give birth, how will they communicate? How will they communicate their needs and challenges? And knowing fully well that healthcare facilities, primary healthcare may not be functional in those areas. And it even came to light subsequently that even the military relied on those communications to communicate, because maybe there were absence of long-range radio. And you will see it was more of a knee-jerk reaction by government against insecurity. It wasn't really well thought out. And that was why within the period that the ban existed, there is still no proof that it increased security in those areas. And we went to court. Subsequently, it was lifted. So you would see the impact of that litigation on that aspect. A good example is also the SIM block. So you know, I mean, 72 million Nigerians cannot communicate. Yes, including the blocked our line too. Actually, yeah. So you see, this is more personal. Cannot use that. And these are people who use it for the digital of trade. So it doesn't only affect their right of freedom of expression, also their right to make money, to eke out a living, as it were. And so we're saying this is just another knee-jerk reaction from government. Not because government does not have the right to collect our data. They do have that right. The NIMC Act is very clear on that. But there are things that need to be put in place by government that hasn't been done before that. So you see everywhere. I pass through Ikeja every day, the NIMC office. Before 8 a.m., you see people there every day waiting to get inside to get their NINs. And government thinks that blocking their lines, for no fault of theirs, because they are just not enough infrastructure to even make them register. Really, registering your NIN shouldn't take more than 10 minutes if you have the equipment and the infrastructure to do that. And then secondly, and this is a very good example, we've had public officers say, for instance, during the unfortunate incident in Kaduna, the train attack, that security agencies knew the train was going to be attacked since February. But what did they do about it? And so, I'm no military expert, but wouldn't it be better if you can hear what they're saying and prevent it, rather than not hear at all? And then we've seen the nuances of kidnapping that shows that even the kidnappers use the phone of the victim to make a call. So really, there is no, either the legal framework or even in terms of technical expertise, the reason for this SIM block that the government does. It's just another knee-jerk reaction to the accident. And then the NSAS protest, the right of people to express themselves, which government thinks is not great. Again, the catch-all phrase that we've seen over time is security, national security. And I get to wonder at what time, which point will we stop using national security as an excuse to breach the rights of? I can go on and on. What about the directives of the NBC, that's the National Broadcasting Commission, to media houses, telling them to tread softly when they are reporting matters of kidnapping? So it's more or less telling a man whose house is burning not to shout. No, you don't have to shout. Just tell us calmly that my house is burning. And no, really, that's what they're about. And the matter is in court as well. So you will see these are, it's called strategic litigation, it's called public interest litigation for a purpose. This is not in Seraph's interest, in the overall interest of everyone, including those in government who will leave government to become citizens. And then they understand the value of rights. And that is why we see them anytime they're out of office and they're attacked to court, they remember that they have human rights. They bring applications for bail on one ground only, ill health. And then we see them in various types of contraptions, some on the neck, some on the leg, and even in places that can't be broken. And I wonder how they got them broken in the first place. And so that is why essentially we do what we do.
Thank you very much for your very interesting response. I believe that that's a round of applause. And it's quite very interesting because if I move from Serap to Amnesty International, it's almost like a similar question for me, because I have seen on TV how sometimes protesters are mobilized to your office, how security agencies at the topmost level release statements directly attacking you. Even before I got the chance to meet you, I used to almost fear for you from a distance that, how is this woman still getting the liver to do this work that she's doing? So I think this similar question for you: what drives you? What keeps you going despite all the attacks, despite all the intimidation and all of that? I've seen Amnesty International must go protests, all of those type of things. What keeps you going?
I hope now that you are close to me, you are assured. Or does that make you even more fearful for your safety?
At least I'm closer. I can also offer some protection.
Thank you. Thank you, Gwe, for that. It's one word, it's humanity. We need to imagine a world where everybody, regardless of where you come from, can live with dignity. And many of the violations that Amnesty International documents and reports, the primary attack is the dignity, the fact that the person is considered someone that does not matter, that the issues that have been raised are issues that should not be prioritized, and especially when it is being meted out by those who have been sent out to protect them. So it's very critical that we don't lose our humanity in the name of profit, in the name of power, or for any other reason. That is the basic reason why we do what we do. With regards to the work that we offer, it has gone beyond just talking about violations, but also providing recommendations on how we can enhance our human rights as a means of improving development, and also for ensuring that we have peace and security. As much as the security agencies, whether it's the military, the police, and other law enforcement agencies are concerned, security, human security is at the bane of what we do, because it's only when you have peace and stability that you can grow your wealth, that you can enjoy the fruit of your labor, so to speak, that everybody can maximize the opportunities that are available to you in this country. And right now, the insecurity that we face, the lack of economic opportunities that exist, is as a result of violation of human rights. And while on the one hand, one of the arguments that has been given is for suspending human rights is that, oh, we're trying to fight terrorism, we are trying to, ensure everybody is safe. But actually, repressive legislations have shown, as we have all seen, because if you live in Nigeria, we've been having these legislations and these rules and regulations and restrictions on who can speak, when to speak, how to speak for several years. Yet the insecurity in the country has continued to increase, and it has reached a point now where the entire country, initially it started with, 10 years ago, it's just Northeast. Now it's South-South, Southwest, North Central, Northwest. The entire country is dealing with one issue or the other: banditry, armed robbery, kidnapping, abduction, ritual killings. You can go on those issues. Then you have the fact that corruption, which Amnesty considers as a root, as also a factor to human rights violation, because when people are not able to access facilities, health facilities, education, work in a dignified manner, you find that people then start resorting to other means in order to survive. And you also find that corruption prevents those resources from actually getting to the people that need them. So at Amnesty International, we continue to raise these issues because we recognize that our name provides some sort of buffer. We're able to access spaces which might be challenging for purely national NGOs. We're also able to use the fact that we have 10 million members all over the world, because our base as an international organization, our strength is in our membership in order to raise those issues. Because if 10 million people write a petition and get the United Nations or the African Commission, then the country is going to want to listen to see, okay, what is it that we can do to make change happen? That said, it's also critical to frame these issues using a human rights lens, because that's the only way we can then justify the interventions that has been put forward. I'll give an example using forced evictions. This month marks 5 years when Otodugame evictions happened here in Lagos State. There's a Lagos State judgment of June 2017 that said that the forced evictions of Otodugame and Iluburin communities in the waterfront areas of Lagos State amounts to forced eviction and also torture, because many of the people were removed from those communities in the dead of night. There were armed guards to evict them forcibly. Many children since that time have not been able to return back to school. One of the arguments that the Lagos State government had given at the time was that these were illegal settlements. Or our research showed generations. There was an elderly woman, she's still alive today, who said her grandparents were on the same land. So if her grandparents were on the same land and how she's had her own children and she has her own grandchildren, then it means that it behoves on the state to do more. Nobody is saying you can't develop communities, but you should be able to provide an alternative. And what the law, international law provides is that you must give adequate notice, you must provide compensation, and you must do it in a manner that does not affect the dignity of the person. The fact that people were suffered a lot of injuries and lost their life also meant that torture and other violations to their dignity, their right to personal liberty were also impacted. You can imagine a community not having a voice, and Amnesty International being able to amplify and also to say, but even your own courts have given a judgment to say you shouldn't have done this. Go into mediation and find a solution. For 5 years down the line, we're still here, and we're still calling the Lagos state government to do a lot more to ensuring that those who have been forcibly evicted, families that have been displaced, those who have lost their lives, they can begin to see some sense of justice. And justice means getting them a place where they can lay their head, restoring to them some of the opportunities they've lost. And what was interesting about their cases was that when we petitioned the Lagos State House of Assembly, they said, oh, they are not Nigerians, they come from elsewhere. But when we showed them that they are actually polling booths and people voted in several elections, everybody kept quiet again. And then it's the fact that there were also public schools. You know, private people can set up private schools anywhere, but there were also public schools that children were attending. Then how can you then provide public services in a place to people who do not, who you say do not deserve to be there? And as a result of the advocacy and the petition we did, it was online. There were online petitions, there were Twitter actions in order to draw attention to this and to say, look, you cannot use development as an excuse to evacuate the poor. It helped to raise not only the issue of forced eviction in a mega city like Lagos, but it showed us the power that social media can have in terms of pushing for justice. And just to end with one point, #EndSARS was not only online. Yes, it started and gained momentum as a result of the incidents that happened in October 2020. But the power it showed was the mobilization, the power to activate and to get people who are not traditionally civil society or NGO people, ordinary people, young people who are going about their business to share their stories and to be able to find and connect with others in order to mobilize action. I think that was powerful. The movement is still something that people are still talking about, but more importantly, it showed that if people are focused and organized, you can make change happen, not through violence, but through concerted determination, as well as amplifying the voices of those who ordinarily not have had the opportunity or the platform in order to express their views safely, securely, and without fear of favor. And that is something that each of us should be willing to fight for, to preserve, and to ensure that that voice continues to be heard. Amnesty is running a campaign called Talk Your Truth. And the idea is, how do we begin to do so in a manner that in line with our rights, but also in a manner that is empowering. And it would be critical to ensure that everyone here goes, leaves this room with the understanding that your right is something that somebody can't take away from you because it's a human right. And that how you do so safely and securely is possible based on the experiences from STERA, Amnesty, Paradigm Initiative, and other groups whose primary purpose is to ensure that we have a voice and that we use it effectively for social justice. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Yeah, we can clap if you want to clap. Yeah, thank you for your kind response. And just as we were speaking, I was thinking about the importance of digital platform to our ability as civics, as even as individuals to really, express ourselves. But beyond expression, I think a few years ago we used to talk about digital platforms as the new market square, kind of, or town hall, right? But a few days ago, I was reading a write-up by the founder of Reddit, and he was saying that people don't realize that we have moved away from that to the fact that it is no longer the town hall or the digital market square. It is now where we exist. So it's not just that we go there to talk or to express ourselves. This is literally our life. So, the need to protect the space is no longer because we want to protect where we go to express ourselves. It's more like just protecting yourself. Khadija, so I want to switch up the conversation a little bit, and I would love to also come to the audience to hear your thoughts. But Khadija, I wanted to kind of build the cat. So just as we're having this conversation, I think when Osai was making an intervention, my phone was ringing, and guess who was calling? It was Channels TV. And I'd responded that they should send a text message so that, because I couldn't pick. And they sent a text message. And basically, what they are asking is they want us to have a conversation later in the day about Twitter, right? When Twitter was suspended in Nigeria and people started making noise, we went to court and all of that. I remember one person who was speaking for the government saying that it's not just a social media platform. There are many of them. So why are people carrying? It's not just a private company and all of that. So I know you use Twitter a lot. So the question is, why Twitter? Why do we take Twitter so seriously?
This feels like a personal attack. This is because Boy will come to the office and ask me if I sleep. Why were you on Twitter by 1 a.m.? Okay, so I think there's no better response than what Kolawole said earlier. And it's a line that I'm going to use forever now. So thank you. Where he said, social media platforms to people in their teens, and I think it's actually people beyond that, almost people approaching their 30s now as well, is to, the older, the boomers, the 60, 70-year-olds, it is their source of news, it is their source of connection. That is, like Boye said, where we live. I can put it to the room. When last did you read a newspaper? And I'm almost certain that those who have read newspapers recently, in the past 2 weeks-ish, are way older than I am. My channel's TV is on my phone. My Arise News is on my phone. Even when the CNN documentary came out about the NSAS protest, I watched it on Twitter. And Twitter is different from Facebook and Instagram in the way that this almost sounds like a campaign for Elon Musk's platform. But it's different in the sense that it is more for conversation. It's more for, Instagram, you go there it's more pictorial videos and stuff like that, but Twitter is particularly positioned for more socioeconomic discourse. I know it can be less serious than that, but it's positioned for that. It is positioned in a way that you can have communications with your government. If you are on Twitter as much as I am, then you know that before the ban, while the president is making all his speeches, Independence Day speech and all of that, somebody is tweeting the speech line by line. And you as an individual, in a way that you would have never had access before, can respond to the president's tweets and tell him this. Even though it's not the president that is holding, it's not the president that is seeing it, but different individuals we have been able to communicate with different individuals in power because of social media platforms in a way that our parents never had access to. At least we know that there are certain legislators who use their own handles themselves. People like Saraki uses his handle himself. And we've been able to communicate, even the respite that comes from dragging certain individuals online, that they have seen it, they have heard it, And before I started working at Paradigm Initiative, I interned at the National Assembly. So I was privy to certain conversations with legislators, and you could tell that they saw these things, they see what we are saying, they see what our concerns are, and it is in a way that can never be done on a morning show, because the person there has been told, you cannot talk about this, you cannot talk about this, you can't say this, you can't do this. It can be done on a morning show. It can be done on a newspaper, because even they have their own politics. It is in a way that can be conveyed only by individuals. Social media has in fact revolutionized the civic space, and it is why we need to protect it. Who knows? Companies come and go. Twitter might not be there tomorrow. It might be something else. It might be Adamu Garba's coup. But whatever comes next, we need to protect social media spaces while also holding them accountable, because they can be complicit in their own ways too. But it has given us opportunities that was never there before, not just Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever else is out there. So yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for your response, Khadija. And this is where I come to you, the audience, and I'll take 2 comments at this point. If you are interested in contributing to the conversation, 1 man, 1 woman. I already have my man, the man in white shirt. I'm looking for a woman right now. Okay, are you raising your hand? Black jacket. Okay, I'm looking for a woman. Okay, Olamide. Okay, I have a man and a woman. Mr. Ahmed, I'm sorry for this slot. The 2 people, I have them already, but be sure that I'll come back to the audience again. And I don't think we can effectively have this conversation without talking about the latest development, which is the fact that now Twitter has a new owner. In terms of our ability to freely express ourselves, like Khadija said, I think for many of us, we have leveraged that platform and other digital platforms for the purpose of free expression. There used to be, there are a lot of bottlenecks to being able to express yourself if you are to rely on the traditional means of expression, like using newspaper or TV. If you have to go to TV to go and express yourself, by the time they give you a bill, you would prefer to be deaf and dumb forever. So, but this platform gives us an opportunity to express ourselves freely, openly, without being held back. And Khadija gave examples of sometimes when even some people that have access to those platforms, and I'm sure Kola and Osai can bear witness to this. There are times you get into a TV station or a radio station, and they are telling you can't talk about this, you can't talk about this, because they are trying to avoid NBC hammer. So, but this platform gives us this opportunity for expression. But there are other concerns that have also come up with the fact that these are private platforms. So you, as an individual, so the question I want you to answer is, or the intervention I want you to make is, how do you see some of these digital platforms, bearing in mind that they are private platforms, and especially Twitter now? Let's narrow it down to Twitter. Twitter now has a new owner, which means that its policy, the direction, and all of that will be shaped differently in the coming days. So what are your thoughts around this? So I'll come to you first. Please, when you are speaking, make sure you introduce yourself first before you speak, so that people in the room can get a sense of who is speaking. Do you have a microphone already? Please, can we have one microphone for this intervention?
Thank you very much. My name is Joseph Olaoluwa. I'm a journalist. I write for the International Center for Investigative Reporting, ICIR. It's in Abuja and it's also in Lagos. About the intervention about Twitter, I don't want to speculate, and although that's not what I want to ask a few questions. But the intervention for Twitter, I think, to be very factual with you, I'm a business journalist. Anybody can buy Twitter. If you have more money than the person that bought it, you can buy it too. So actually, it's a private enterprise for profit. You get, there are other concerns around privacy and the rest, but it's a shareholder decision. You understand? And whoever buys it has the right to do, what he thinks he can do. So we speculate about, okay, what Mox will do, what Mox will not do, but it hasn't done anything yet. So we should keep a free and open mind and see how, when it comes up, engage like that. So that's for Twitter. To the questions I want to ask, I want to talk to Sarah. I want to ask them about. I like the fact that you said that 37 lawsuits, ongoing at all levels. I want to ask, like, how do you get funding for these lawsuits? I know that lawsuits cost money and takes a lot of time.
Are you sure you're not doing investigative reporting with your question?
So I would like to know, and I don't know if you think it's frivolous. I don't know if you think it's frivolous, but we hear the lawsuits every time. I'm like, where is we getting the money, and why so many lawsuits? Are there other ways of intervening or interventions with them? That's for Sarah. For Amnesty International, I wanted to ask a question, something that's quite burning. Recently, there was a report by two organizations, one for mine and one before mine, questioning Amnesty International's influence. Now, there's a story by David Undeyi, which says Amnesty International compromised by the secret police, AI and DSS. After that story, my organization did a story similar to that. And then after that, Shaware was asking for Amnesty International to be closed down, that they were not doing the rights of the ordinary persons. Now, I understand that Amnesty International is a big organization and that there could be influences from DSS, from AI, from other interests, other burgeoning interests. I want to know why Amnesty International has not responded to these claims about how independent their activities are, how transparent, because as much as we come here and talk about digital rights and digital, all of these things, we also need to be sure that we are on the good side as well. Because I'm a press person, I have to be on the neutral side as well. So if I'm fighting for your rights, I have to be also on the neutral side as well. I'm trying to avoid as much as bad press as possible. Or if they're a bad press, try and clear the air about it. So I'm worried about the fact that, okay, Amnesty is embroiled in some conversations that is questioning how truthful they are. And I would like Amnesty International to speak to that. Thank you very much.
Okay. I think, okay, we have one more comment, then we'll come back. Later, Olamide at the back.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Olamide. I don't know, what do I do? I'm an independent marketing consultant. So first, I'll talk about the matter at hand, the sale of Twitter to Elon Musk. I'd like to quite disagree with the first person who spoke about Twitter being a private business. I mean, Twitter is actually a public company as that now, because I mean they have IPO and all that, but Elon is going to take it private. And I think that the reason why a lot of people are concerned is because over the last few years, we saw the impact of Twitter in elections across the world, how, don't let me call any country, but we know there are bot farms across the world, in Asia, in Europe and all that, and how politicians use it to influence elections. So, I mean, people are a bit worried. And we know the impact that Donald Trump had on Twitter. You know, a tweet from him could, spike a stock, of a particular company. But I mean, I don't think, I've been seeing a lot of opinions, but I'm very indifferent about it because I mean, Twitter as a company has policies, and for Twitter to run in countries, I mean, I don't know about Africa, but in Europe, there are really stringent laws and policies that they have. So yeah, Elon Musk can tweet and be happy and be excited, but by the time continents like the European Union or unions like the European Union sanction them with fines and all that, I'm sure that they can't undo. But let's talk about the freedom. I think Twitter is about the freest social media platform that we have now. There's nothing you want to say on Twitter that you cannot say right now. So I'm very optimistic that we'll still have that access to freedom of information. So fortunately or unfortunately, the first speaker has asked some of my questions, but I want to direct this to Serap. I'm very surprised. And when you said you just have 37, I'm like, really? Every headline is breaking Serap, as So I want to ask, to complement his question, do you do this for fun? Because sometimes some of this, we just hear the beginning of the lawsuits. There's no follow-up. And then, because if you really have, I'm with you, but I really need to ask, on behalf of other parents, if this lawsuits really mean a lot to you, I don't think you should be dishing out lawsuits, the way you do. Yes, it is you holding the government accountable, but it doesn't also look good, that everyone feels like, oh, Sarah, they will sue the government. I don't think that there's debt in it, but maybe when you tell us why you do it, and if you don't just do it to make headlines or because you have funding, I mean, we'll have a better understanding. Then I'm really interested for Amnesty International. I was really going to ask about the report that we saw online. Are you really biased as an organization? I respect the work that you do, but I mean, as much as you hold government institutions accountable, we should also know that you can be held accountable. So look forward to your responses. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, if you won't clap for us, you ask for it. So on the lighter side, the very interesting thing was that David was meant to be on this panel. That's David Ndeye from Newswire. And at the time the invitations were sent out, the report was not out yet. So I had seen the report, but my colleagues who were handling the invitations had not seen it. So when I saw the invitations, and I'm like, okay, you want to bring these two people to the same panel? Have you seen the report? So I had to send it to Khadija that go and read this report. So I mean, when you asked the question, I had mixed feeling between, would this be the appropriate platform for that to be addressed or not? But thankfully, Osai would respond to it. And also the other question about Sarah, in my mind, I'm like, okay, people really came prepared for the two of you. Yeah, so before they go on, okay, all right. So, okay, Khadija will make a comment, then Kola will respond to the question you asked about Sarah. So I think you can take two questions together about Sarah, and then Osai will also respond to the question about Amnesty International. But as much as possible, I don't want to derail the direction of this meeting, because there's a reason why we are having this conversation. So Osai will give a response, but if there are follow-up, you can always follow up, maybe via emails and all of that. But I don't want this question to be turned into addressing that particular issue. So Khadija, please.
Thank you. So I just want to say that as a human rights advocate who does the work that I do, I get that. So this is me responding to Olamide, and actually you as well. All of us see Serap's breaking news and we joke about it, breaking. But I believe that as Nigerians, we need to interact with the law more. I do not find the work that they do frivolous. And this is because if more people were doing it, it would look less like Serap was doing so much frivolous work. If you look at countries like America, where I was talking to my colleague outside just now about a lady who sued Starbucks because coffee poured on her and it was too hot and she won. The reason why Nigeria is the way it is because we do not have strengthened institutions. A lot of us say that we have the laws, but it's the implementation that is the problem. Where and how else do you implement if not the court of law? If you went to law school, you've heard the court is the last hope of the common man. If we don't do it, how do we get justice? And it's funny because Paradigm Initiative has been to court and we've been called a busybody by the court before. But we don't even realize as we sit down here how many rights we enjoy because somebody did the work of busybody. For every, say, feminist that is in this room, a lot of the rights that you enjoy now is because of the rights that people were killed for back in the day. And a lot of the rights, I believe we would eventually enjoy. A lot of the things that would eventually be enforced is because of the work that people like Serap do. So just to end this in, I don't know what the year was, but the year when that USSD code came up with the NIN thing, where you can put your date of birth and your last name and your NIN would pop out. It's easy to get anybody's last name and date of birth. Osai, who is quite famous, I can go on Wikipedia, find her last name, her date of birth, put it on NIMSI's website, and then I'll find her NIN. Her NIN will give me access to her BVN and other information. When that happened, a lot of people were happy, this is an easy way to do it. But people like Paradigm Initiative saw that the type of data breaches that could come from this was immense. So we ran to court and then NIMSI immediately removed, they changed the whole process. And we didn't eventually get a full judgment on that because we had already settled it. But if things like that do not happen, then change would not come. And the reason why you don't see as much follow-up is because a case can take 10 years, 5 years. We took the case on the Twitter ban to court. I cannot remember when. We've not been heard. It's mention, adjournment, 2 months adjournment. So by the time a judgment does come, it could have taken some time, but the change is necessary. So hoping I've not taken too much from Kola's response.
Thank you very much. I will let Kola respond. To be honest, I was also tempted, want to jump on it, but I remember that my role there is a moderator, so I will stay within my calling.
Thank you very much, Khadija. So remind me when I'm president, I'll make you my Lai Mohammed. I live with so to speak to, and first to say that Elon Musk bought Twitter, it's good. In Nigeria, people are spending 100 million naira to buy a phone. Thank God they are not the one buying Twitter. Funding for our suits. Luminate is one of our funders, by the way, and I'm sure they are one of the ones funding this event. So our funders they've always been known. So the MacArthur Foundation is one of our funders. And incidentally, they're also funding various agencies of government, including the Nigerian Bar Association, the NED, Osiwa, Ford Foundation. These are donors that fund development work. Knowing fully well that public interest or strategic litigation is an activity that teases out, like Khadija had said, various issues that needs to be litigated. Roe versus Wade in US is a classic because somebody went to court to challenge the right to life, the right of women to abort or time period. There are lots of litigation in Nigeria publicly that defines what we can do. For instance, the power of the Attorney General of the Federation, that's Section 174 of the Constitution, to enter what is called a nolle prosequi. And what it simply means is this: the Attorney General has the power to take over any criminal case in Nigeria at any time and discontinue it. You may not know what that means until the offender has done something wrong to you. And that it means if judgment is tomorrow for a case that's gone on for 10 years, the Attorney General can come in today, take up that case, and discontinue. And no one can challenge them. And there are lawyers who are there to go to court to challenge what public interest means, even though the Constitution says you must exercise that power in the public interest. So imagine if someone that done something wrong to you. I don't want to give you instances. You can think of any crime that is grievous. And the person had been charged to court. And you are hopeful that you get justice. And then the Attorney General comes and does that. And it tells you that's what the law says. And then your lawyer tells you that the law says you should act in the public interest. Won't you ask your lawyer what public interest means? And lawyers have gone to court on that case to try to tell the court to explain what is public interest. That is how powerful strategic litigation is. And there are lots of examples. Twitter ban, a case in point. We were able to get an injunction from the ECOWAS court that stopped the federal government. If you recall, at that time, the Attorney General of the Federation had come out to say that anybody that was found using VPNs or any other motion would be arrested. And this is when we are challenging the ban itself for being unlawful. And then you are threatening that whichever way we access Twitter, we are going to charge us for a criminal offense, which is not a crime, by the way. And we have gone to court, and the court granted an interim injunction, stopping the Attorney General from doing that, which I believe is why they couldn't arrest anyone, even though it was obvious that people were tweeting using VPN. And that is the power of strategic litigation. I can go on and on. We've had judgments against government, most of which are yet to be enforced. But like I've said, that's why it's called strategic litigation, to challenge vital areas of law. For instance, the right you enjoy to bail. People have gone to court to explain what 48 hours the constitutional provisions mean. Does it mean that if there's a court within a 20-kilometer radius, for instance? And you would understand those things when you are either a victim or you are a stakeholder in those things as they unfold. And to speak to the quantity of the suits, so to speak, if you ask me, I really think there are still too few, given the issues as they come up. And that clearly brings me to what Khadija said about interacting with laws. Section 6 of the Constitution says clearly that the judiciary, and that means every court in Nigeria, is the organization, the arm of government that will determine rights between individuals, between arms and tiers of government, and between government and the citizens. And that is what we are doing. Unless you prefer that we carry guns, which of course will be unlawful, which is what some people are doing because they've seen that they think the system will not give them justice. And so we are going to court submitting to an intermediary, which is clearly lawful, to determine whether we are right, whether government is right, and what the law is. And these courts have been trying their best to determine what the law is. So we are doing that because the issues keep coming up, and we have to rise up to the occasion to get the courts, as it is said, the last hope of the common man, to be able to determine what is right in this instance. And what. Thank you.
Thank you for your response. And before you come in, I just want to add something that someone said in one of the sessions we had yesterday in the evening, that if you take a divorce case to the courts, that the judge probably has about 15,000 precedents he can look into to help him make a determination. Okay, you were the one who made that intervention yesterday. But if you take a digital rights case to the courts, it is going to be difficult for the judge to even find a precedent to rely on. And that's why this issue becomes complicated. So one of the decisions we made yesterday is that we are going to keep going to courts. So what you have seen is child's play. As a matter of fact, Paradigm Initiative is currently sourcing for lawyers to work with, because we want to do as many litigation as possible, because the space is too empty, like in terms from litigation point of view. It is too empty. Judges don't understand the issues. There are no precedents to rely on. So we need to litigate as many cases as possible so that in 10, 15 years, generations that will come, they will not have as much challenge in terms of getting justice on these
2019, yes, 2019, in April. Incidentally, it was in April too. But last year, a high court in Abuja granted judgment and said that those rates were unlawful. Are you aware of that? Right? So it's also about how we also share and publicize. It's just that SERAP does a better job of publicizing what they do. A lot more litigation is going on and a lot more people are getting successful. Before we heard of the case of the, is it policewoman who was found pregnant, there was already a decision that Mrs. Falana had taken to court challenging the regulations in the police regulations saying that unmarried females cannot get pregnant or they need the permission of their superiors to actually get married. Are you aware of that provision? And it has been challenged in a court here in Lagos State. So a lot is happening. And so we need to also recognize that unless what they say don't agonize, organize, right? That's what the labor movement say. If you want change to happen, and if you want human rights to be your reality, then you have to organize to make sure that your voices are heard. And strategic litigation is a non-violent way of getting your voices heard. And the good thing about it is that even if, especially when you engage with the regional courts, even if you get a decision and it's not implemented immediately, it is still there, it still stands. And we know for the ECOWAS court, for example, there were so many cases against the Gambia on freedom of expression. And what happened is that when there was a change of government, eventually all those decisions became enforceable in the current administration. So can you imagine if the family members of those journalists that had been possibly disappeared or had lost their lives, I said, oh, you know, there's nothing we can do about it. Let's not go to court. They would not be getting the compensation and the acknowledgement that the state had a hand in the enforced disappearance and death of their missing loved ones. So let's not look at it like, oh, it seems to be happening a lot of time, but what can we do to amplify and extend that? So more directly in terms of what Amnesty International does and this article that had come out, the thing is, Amnesty International is an independent and impartial organization. We are non-political. We do not support any particular religion, and we do our work without fear or favor. So what that means is that a lot of the decisions we take is based on human rights principles and standards. We recognize that in the work that we do, some people might disagree with our approach, but we always explain the methodology of the research we do and also how we carry out these activities. And so on that point, myself and my colleagues who do the tireless work. We are less than 20 in the office, covering the entire country. You can imagine the amount of work and the pressures in terms of saying that you can actually deploy and cover as many human rights situations as it occurs. And we do this with the conviction that it's about humanity. If one person's life can be changed, we'll do the little that we can, but within the confines and the rules and regulations of an international organization like Amnesty International, which is present in several countries. Sometimes that might not seem so very clear to people, but we do it with sincerity of purpose and also with the recognition that the work we do is to ensure that everyone gets a fair chance. The only thing we ask as well is that you also give us a fair chance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I've just been told that I have less than 10 minutes, and I want to get more input from the audience. I see two men raising their hands, so no man should raise up his hand again. So if there are women who want to speak, you can raise up your hand. I've noted you, Mr. Ahmed, and yeah, if there are women who want to speak, please can you raise up your hand? And you would have just 90 minutes to speak. Sorry, 90 seconds. 90 seconds. Sandy, please, you do me a favor. You hold the mic. Sandy, you hold the mic, and then once it's 90 seconds, I'll signal you, take it off. So please, this is where to deploy your summary skills. So let's start from Mr. Ahmed on the left. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start with Amnesty International. Let me start by appreciating your effort. My name is Idris Mohammed. I'm a journalist. Appreciating your efforts trying to find my closest friend in university, Abubakar Dadiata. So my question, this one is, apart from protests, please, what are the other tools deployed in defending people's rights? And the second one is, we had a conversation last month in Abuja in the same this issue of shrinking civic space, especially in the media space. Please, what can you do in collaboration with NUJ and also the legal practitioners? Maybe they can offer pro bono to protect the journalists, because the reason why issues of insecurities are not in the Nigerian media space, especially from the northern part, because of the challenges journalists are facing in the north. There are some certain stories we can report, because I shared experiences study how DSS just detained me because I report story about Kakara boys abduction. And let me go to the setup, and the reason why they shut down internet in Katsina, I'm from Katsina, Kaduna, and some other northwest regions, was just because people are reporting attacks on social media. Not because they want to crack down bandits, because anytime bandit attack community, before you know, in less than 1 second, 1 minute, people report. So there were a lot of reports of attacks. So they want to shut down those voices. That was the reason why they shut down internet. Apart from that one, they don't have any reason again. Thank you very much.
Correct. Yeah, Sunny, the rule is you hold the mic, right? So we do it now. We need to correct the wrong.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Fine. My name is Jonathan. I'm a lawyer, and first thank Kola and Sarah for the work that they do. Matter of fact, DRLI just filed a case against MTN. I am the applicant in that case. It's about access to the internet, and I made extensive use of the decision of ECOWAS Court of Justice in the Twitter ban's case. Why it's important is because locally, most of the decisions we've had when it comes to digital rights, privacy, data protection, have had to do with the right to privacy under the Constitution. No law, no court in Nigeria has identified or accepted the right to freedom of expression online as a constitutional right. Only in the Twitter case was it decided. Aside that, you have foreign decisions, India and many other countries, where it has been stated that the right to freedom of expression online is a constitutional right. So you're doing a great job, and I thank you for that. The only question I want to ask is, you get judgments from regional courts. Even though the protocols have not been domesticated, there are other procedures that we can use to enforce these judgments. Why is SERAP not enforcing judgments obtained through regional courts? Because I think that it is not enough to make a statement by saying this right exists. We should at least make the attempt. It puts these state actors more on the spot. So I want to know why SERAP isn't taking that step. At least judgments obtained from regional courts. For Amnesty, I'm a member, at least online, I volunteer. participate in campaigns as much as I can. I've read so much about you, Sai, and I can only appreciate you for what you do. Like my friend Idris said, we do a lot of campaigns, especially online. We sign petitions across the world, not just for Nigerians, but for other persons. But I would want to see a situation where AI is more involved in using the legal system. Forget the bottlenecks. Yes, I admit, whether for public interest litigation or otherwise, there's a lot to deal with. But I think also that once in a while, we get a bold judge who decides to make a break from the crowd. So I want a situation where AI is also involved in this process. That's just, it's a comment, it's not a question.
All right, thank you very much. Those are two hands that I saw. But if there is any woman in the audience who wants to speak, I can still allow at least one woman to speak. Otherwise, let me come back to the panelists. Is there anybody? Okay, so let me just come to our panelists. Thankfully, I have a very fair balance. I have two women on the panel. I'm just one man. So we've run out of time, which means that we don't really have a lot of time to, to speak again. But well, I would love you to maximize your final comments to perhaps respond to any of the issues that were raised, and also to leave us with a passing sentence, phrase, or something you just wanted to go on with. So I will start from you, Khadija. Can I start from you? All right.
Passing phrase.
And Khadija, please, if you can also use this opportunity to talk about the platforms you spoke to earlier, the IETA report, how can people use it? What other ways can others benefit from it?
So I would start by hammering on something I said earlier, which was that if more people were doing the things that Sarah was doing, they wouldn't look like this unicorn. We all need to interact with the law better. We all need to challenge the government more. During the NSAS protest, we were told that the new generation are more courageous than the old. They know how to stand up to oppose governments. And I understand that a lot of us were shaken by lives being lost. And suddenly we understood the apprehension that our parents had about things like protesting. But like Paula said, the type of advocacy that we are doing is a non-violent way. It's one of the safest ways of attaining justice. So bringing me to Paradigm Initiative's flagship platform. First is IETA. Like I said, it's a digital rights toolkit. The first part of it explains to you who the digital rights actors are, what your role in the space can be. The second part is now the things that you can, the second part is Digital Security Center. And the last part now talks about censorship, internet shutdowns, and stuff like that. You can get it on ieta.africa. The second flagship platform, which I believe is most important for this conversation, is Reporti. So in a situation where you want to do as I have said, and you want to interact with the law more, you've seen a digital rights violation, and you believe that we should take this thing to court, then people like Paradigm Initiative are ready to support you. And I'm hoping that we have lawyers in the room here who are willing to offer us, your services for a very, very tiny fee. But once you report a violation, we would follow up with you and see the interventions that we can come up with on that particular issue. A lot of it, of course, will be centered around litigation. So let's work together to make Nigeria better.
Nice to meet you. Osai.
Thank you very much. I checked. I think it's important for us to know that there are various means through which we can express ourselves. And like he said, protest is one. Others is advocacy. We do a lot of advocacy at national, regional, and international level, because oftentimes our governments, when they go to the UN General Assembly, they are going to meet their peers. So if other countries are asking them questions about the human rights situation in their country, it forces them to rethink, because it means if you come back again in another 3 or 4 years and you're still saying the same thing, then it means that you're not making much progress. So advocacy is also one tool through which we're also able to push our activities. Human rights education is also something that we're not using so much in Nigeria, but when people are more equipped and aware of what their rights are, you find out that they are also less vulnerable and they're also better able to push back. Because like I said, we all can't be in every place in Nigeria, but one person making a difference can mobilize other people in their community. Training, Amnesty runs lots of academies, I think Paradigm Initiative as well. Most of our courses are online. We recognize that many people might not have access to that, but we also work with other partners. We've done training with, I think, Premium Times, they are now Center for something else. Yes, CIJD, for lawyers, also for the media. I wanted to share that just this weekend, our European colleagues were able to push using advocacy to get the Digital Services Act passed at the EU. The EU has agreed on a deal. And what that means is that big tech companies can also be held to account in terms of how they use their platform, or their platform is then used for abuses. And it's critical to say this because oftentimes when we talk of accountability, we think of states, but we also do accountability looking at corporations. Amnesty's work in Nigeria with regards to multinationals in the oil industry, Shell in particular, is really rife. So we're looking at it not only in terms of the fact that the Ogoni 9 were executed under a military dictatorship as a result of agitating against oil companies, but also the environmental damages and the continued advocacy to clean up the Niger Delta. Instrumentally also, Amnesty has released a report on how social media can also be a harmful place, particularly for women. I will encourage everyone to go online to look at two reports we've done on Twitter about Twitter being a toxic place for women. And this covered research across the world, whereby we found that because the way the policies have been designed, it's often gender blind, with people not realizing that the policies and the way the policies are applied are discriminatory against women. This has led to a lot of women leaving Twitter or diminishing their voice on Twitter. It can also explain why many women don't feel so confident speaking in spaces, even when given the opportunity to do so, because they know that there is a price for being a vocal, confident woman online or offline. So that's also a study that Amnesty did, which you can check. And the last one was a study specifically on the United States, in which Amnesty also made specific recommendations to Twitter as to what needs to change. And Twitter, of course, said, oh, we're going to do something about it, recognizing that oftentimes when women make complaints about the way they've been treated online, the current social guidelines and policies are not really enhancing that. And the last word I'd like to leave is for my sisters in the room. You have a voice, you own it, you own your space. People are going to say whatever they want to say, but it's important that the more you speak up, the more your voices are heard, and you can begin to contribute to the discussions at hand, whether it's online or offline, and that there are resources available to keep you safe and also to ensure that you can have the opportunities to enhance connections and opportunities. Thank you very much.
Hola. Okay. Thank you very much, Gray. It's been a very interesting conversation. I'd like to just respond that we are taking steps along the lines of enforcing some of the regional judgments got from the regional courts. It's something we're working on, and even the ones we've had in local courts. And I forgot to mention two of them earlier. We had gotten a judgment at the Lagos State High Court, for instance. We've gotten good feedback, stopping government hospitals from insisting on people donating blood before they attend to women that want to give birth in those hospitals. We saw it as a human rights issue, and we went to court, and we won. And we've had feedbacks from citizens just like you. They are not even lawyers who requested for a copy of that judgment because they want to use it to insist on their rights in those hospitals. You can imagine what will go through someone's mind if before they attend to his wife is about to give birth, he must be able to donate blood. Really, you would understand that that's a breach of his human rights. And secondly, the judgment we got from the Federal High Court, stopping public officers who are earning from the state to also earn from it. We call it double emolument. And this is just a simple scenario. Somebody used to be a governor, and he earns pension, by the way, huge pensions every year, and then he's now appointed the minister. So he's earning 2 jumbo pay from the state, whereas ordinary people are earning, it's not even a rodent. You can't call it a rodent pay, like a cockroach pay. And the court agreed with us. And so that's another judgment that it's in the public domain that we're trying to enforce. And so we'll continue to do this. And please, if we put out this tweet or these public advocacy initiatives calling on Nigerians to join a public interest litigation, it would be helpful if we understand that this is a collective work that we all need to join it. And that reminds me, as I round off, of this Yoruba proverb. I'll try to do a bit of transliteration. It says, "Ikú tó ń pojú gbà ẹni, òwe ló ń pa fún ni." It simply means that, I don't know whether that translates into English. It means that death that took your closest ally is warning you. So when it comes, I hope you are prepared. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thanks to our panelists. Can you please help me to appreciate our panelists one more time? Khadija Usman, Paradigm Initiative, Osai Ojigo, Amnesty International, and Kolawole Oluwadare. I guess this will be the end of the session. We, as a matter of fact, overshot our time, and we will be going back to our seat, and where I hand over to Sunny. Okay. The cameraman, are you available to take the panelists a picture? Okay.
Yeah,
it's on its way. Yeah. You have a right to take an official photograph.
Hello. All right. So while taking the pictures, okay, first I would like to apologize that this session is too interesting that it even spills over to the next session designated time. So quickly, I would like to introduce the next and, yeah, of course, the last session, which titled Tech Culture, Power Play, and Gender Inequality in Technological Workspace. This session is organized by our partner, Stand to End Rape Initiative, STAR. So with this short introduction, I would like to invite Uraula Abulatan to take over the mic as the moderator of this session.
Good afternoon, everyone. All right. It's nice to see you and to have everyone here. My name is Wiraola Bulato. Like you said, I am a communications professional and I also work with Stand to End DRIF initiative. I'm here today to moderate the panel Tech Culture, Power Play, and Gender Inequality in Technological Workspace. And I have 4 panelists with me today, and I'll be introducing them shortly. First is Joyce Obi. Joyce is a software developer and entrepreneur, fascinated with electronic systems, and she's an ardent supporter of women's participation in the digital economy. Joyce, a round of applause for Joyce, please. Right next, I have Kachi Kalu, who is an innovative and solution-based UX designer with proven history of enhancing user experience and engagement for renowned brands. She also works with children, adolescents, and families who suffer from a variety of mental illnesses, using therapeutic modalities, using therapeutic modalities, including but not limited to cognitive behavior therapy, reality therapy, and motivational interviewing. A round of applause for Kachi, please. Thanks, Kachi. Next, I have Dr. Kide Ibiang. She's an experienced medical doctor. She focuses on sexual and reproductive health and rights. And she has also been a program coordinator for a Mandela project. She's a 2022 Mandela Washington Fellowship fellow, and she's, I seem to have this mixed up. Sincere apologies. Let me just take Dr. Kede again. Dr. Kede Ibang, she's an experienced medical doctor. She focuses on sexual and reproductive health and rights. She recently earned a 2022 Mandela Washington Fellowship placement that is for leadership in civic engagement at the University of Georgia. A round of applause for Dr. Kede, please. Thank you. Sincere apologies for the mix-up. Then, last but not the least, we have Damilola Alabi, the programs and communications expert focused on women, diversity, and inclusion. She is currently the programs manager at WeTech. A round of applause for Damilola. And thank you. So, as we know, Nigeria is a deeply patriarchal society, and as such, everywhere that people gather, patriarchy discrimination is bound to seep into it. Recently, we are protesting discriminatory laws that our lawmakers refuse to amend. And I think it's important to mention that since this panel is focused on tech culture, power play, and gender inequality in technological workspace, we all know that a lot of strides has been made in ensuring inclusion, especially for women folk in tech space, but we can all agree that a lot more still needs to be done. Naturally and right from time, tech has often, or the tech workplace or the tech space has often been seen as a man-only programmer scene, where women are not only excluded, but the ones that are able to have access to it are discriminated against and are limited in terms of access to positions and tools that they need. Hence the importance of this panel. So today we are going to be discussing women's position in the ICT sector, the intersection of sexual and gender-based violence and the tech culture, and also the intersection of power play, gender inequality, and inclusion. So just straight up to my panelists, this question goes to everyone. What are the major causes of power play and gender inequality balance in the tech place? Kachi, do you want to start with that?
Okay, can you hear me? Hi, good day. I think I would start with society. That's where I would mount my tent. Society. In Nigeria currently, we don't have a lot of children female children, having the idea of becoming medical doctors. Most of them want to be actresses, makeup artists, which is not wrong, but I would say that we did not, as growing up as children, were not, our ideas were not broadened. We had an idea that there are stops for guys, there are stops for ladies. You can't come up as a lady and say you want to be a farmer. You can't come up as a lady and say you want to be. There are certain things they expect you as a woman growing up to be. And, being in the tech space or, going to science class in quote was not it. So, yeah, I think the society was the bedrock for us.
All right, thank you very much, Kachi. So conditioning, societal conditioning, the things we allow our boys and our girls have access to.
True.
Dr. Kede, do you agree with that? What do you think are the major causes of power play and gender imbalance in the tech space?
Yeah, I'll just tie into what she said very much because stereotypes tend to play, it plays a huge role in what we see and what is ingrained in our minds as humans. Because I can clearly remember that growing up as a child, I think the main reason why I wanted to become a doctor was because I kept seeing Prof. Dora Akunyili on TV. And I said I wanted to be like this sometime in the future. So I think that particularly for the tech space, we do not have enough female role models. And where they are female role models, their work is not being amplified enough for the younger generations to see that I can aspire to be a software developer. I can say I want to be a data scientist. We're still stereotyping women some kind of roles. Now you can say that, okay, when you go to a medical school, you might see quite a number of females. I say for my set in medical school, we were probably a 60-40, 60 being guys and 40 being females, which was not very bad, considering that if you were to look at 20, 30, 50 years ago, you probably might not see more than 3 women in medical school. And there was some point in history where women were not even allowed to be doctors before. Yeah. Yes. So we need to amplify this work more. We need to let young girls know that you can do it. I mean, you can practically be anything. So I very much agree with what she said.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kede. Damilola, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think the way things are right now, in terms of gender equality, I think it's a reflection of our society about what we think women should do and what we think men should do. And I always say that because people will say there are things that are meant for men and there are things that are meant for women. But if you bring it back, you see that when there's a value attached to something, it's mostly attached to men. Because even if you say, oh, some roles are left for women, if you take it out of the text and you bring it into the society, you will see that in the culinary industry, men are the top chef, and cooking is something you tend to say is for women. But why is it that men are dominating? It just means that when value or prestige is attached to something, the gender that we attach to is men.
Thank you very much for that. I actually do agree, and I also agree with Dr. Kede that the more we spotlight women in tech, we have hope for the incoming generation to pursue whatever it is they want. Joyce, we are yet to hear from you. Do you have anything to add to that question?
I mean, very children, young kids, they are not encouraged on the careers, okay? And even when they show that they are shut down sometimes, or they are not encouraged as much as them. I think that.
All right, thank you very much. Just an FYI, you are not loud enough, so you need to, when you're speaking, you need to move very, very close to the mic. Right, thanks very much. So I do agree with that, and it's something that we've seen. There was one time I was arguing with my colleagues, and they're like, "Oh, who is stopping women from, joining tech now? Everyone has resources." And then I just asked them a simple question, like, "Okay, so, you're at home, you're a guy, how many household chores do you have?" Right? So you have all the free time. If you tell your parents today and like, "Oh, I want to study my course, I want to do everything," they're like, "Oh, go. But if a girl comes, they'll first say like, you've not finished washing the plates, you haven't cooked." She has like